Week 2. I know you can barely get over the excitement of week 1, but we're already moving into week 2, source types. I have a little PowerPoint that's going to follow that'll give you a little bit of an overview, explain some of the terms, and then you can move into the module and do your reading, watch your videos, use your study resources, and do the assignments. So I will talk to you guys later. Let's dive right into our focus on source types. We're going to be looking at source types in two ways. First of all, we're going to be looking at authorship, whether something is primary, secondary, or tertiary. And we're also going to be looking at source types in terms of the purpose. And we may be looking at scholarly, trade, or popular publications. So let's go ahead and start with authorship and primary sources. A primary source is an original document containing first-hand information about a topic, and different fields of study may use different types of primary sources. For example, in the humanities, we might be looking at diaries or interviews or letters or original works of art or photographs or speeches or works of literature. And in the sciences, we might be looking at technical reports or original research. In terms of secondary sources, a secondary source contains commentary on or discussion about a primary source. The most important feature of secondary sources is that they offer an interpretation of information gathered from primary sources. Some good examples of secondary sources are biographies, dissertations, indexes, abstracts, or bibliographies, and you use those to locate secondary sources. Maybe journal articles, monographs, or reviews. And our final examination of authorship is going to be in terms of tertiary sources. Now, tertiary sources present summaries or condensed versions of materials, usually with reference back to the primary and or secondary sources. They can be a good place to look for facts or get a general overview of a subject, but they rarely contain any sort of original material. You might consider your textbooks a tertiary source. Now, some examples of these might be dictionaries, encyclopedias, or handbooks. So let's look at some real-life examples of what those authorship source types would be. In the humanities, a primary source might be the novel The Sun Also Rises. A secondary source would be essays about themes in the novel, and a tertiary source might be an encyclopedia entry on Hemingway. In the sciences, you might be looking at Einstein's diary as a primary source. A secondary source might be a biography on Einstein, and a tertiary source might be a dictionary of relativity. So that ends our examination of authorship. Now let's take a look at purpose. And we're going to be looking at three different types: scholarly publications, trade publications, and popular publications. Let's go ahead and start with scholarly publications. Now, scholarly publications are written by experts for experts. And because they have that specific audience, they often use a lot of jargon or really long words. They also are going to report on original research or thought, and typically on a specific academic topic. There's going to be few images or ads, but they may contain some sort of graphs or charts. The articles are long, so if you're reading scholarly publications, allow yourself extra time for the longer reading. And the articles typically go through a peer review process where they're evaluated by a panel of experts in their field. So their peers are going to go over that article before it's accepted for publication. And finally, in scholarly publications, the articles include a works cited or references page. So they are giving credit where credit is due. Some examples of scholarly publications might be the Journal of Popular Culture, Critical Studies in Television, the Journal of the American Medical Association, or, my favorite, the Journal of Academic Librarianship. So let's take a look at trade publications. Now, trade publications are written for people who work in a specific field. The authors may be professionals who work in the field, and the purpose is to keep members of a profession up to date with new research, products, or issues related to that specific field. The articles have colorful images and advertising relating to the field. The length can vary, but they're usually short. And unlike the peer review that you see in the scholarly publications, articles are usually just evaluated by editors on staff. And finally, in trade publications, there are rarely a works cited or references page. So let's take a look at some real-world examples of trade publications. So in the entertainment field, you might have Variety. For nurses, Nursing Times Magazine. Teachers, Education Matters magazines. If you're in law enforcement, you might read Police Chief. Or if you own a 7-Eleven, you might take a look at Convenience Store News. And finally, the last purpose is going to be popular publications. Now, popular publications are written for a general audience using non-technical language. The authors are usually staff writers or freelancers, so they're not necessarily experts in the field. And the actual purpose is to provide general education, opinion, or entertainment, and it's typically really broad-based. They're colorful with many pictures. The articles are short. Again, they don't go through peer review, but they may be evaluated by an editor, but not necessarily an expert in the field. And the articles rarely have a works cited or references page. So some examples of that would be People, Us, Taste of Home, Motor Trend, Psychology Today, and, of course, Cat Fancy. So those were the two types of sources that we were going to be looking at. But this week you're also going to be doing the library orientation workshop. So let's go over the learning objectives really quickly. You're going to find out where that library is located on campus. Hint, it's centrally located. You're going to get that feel for the basic layout of the library building, so what's on floor 1 and 2. You're going to find out many ways to access the library website. You're going to find out about some great library services that are available to you. You're going to know the multiple ways that you can get help from a librarian, and you're going to find out how to book a librarian. So week 2 is pretty darn action-packed. So have a happy week 2. If you run into any problems, remember, all you need to do is reach out to me, and I'm there to help. So have a lovely week and have fun.